Welcome. This is Talib Kareem with STEM for Us, and we are very excited to be back with you for another exciting episode of the STEM for Us podcast and our YouTube presentation with cybersecurity and cyber professionals, cybersecurity leaders, and cyber education professionals across the country. We have a wonderful conversation with a beautiful and talented and brilliant cybersecurity professional and business strategist. And we are looking forward to introducing her to you. We encourage you to go and first of all, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Like the content that you hear. Feel free to add any comments that you might have and share this video with your friends. Again, we're really incredibly excited about this conversation in particular because it is with a professional who really comes from our community, who you got a chance. In fact, I won't even go through the entire story. I'll let her go with the story. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you Kameran Evans, a cybersecurity professional and business strategist, and a wonderful example of what STEM for Us can do. Kameran, welcome, and how are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm great. How are you?
Awesome. And so, where are you, tuning in or broadcasting in today?
Bethesda, Maryland.
Excellent. Well, Kameran, it is great to get a chance to talk with you, and we're really looking forward to, really diving into, who is Kameran Evans and how your involvement with STEM for Us helped to open up a new opportunity for you. So why don't we just start by, basically giving you the floor and you telling us who is Kameran Evans?
So I am many things. I think the first one is just, I would say a business owner and a business thinker. And like you said, a strategist. I'm a mother. I am, really ambitious, and everything that I do, I sometimes will go overboard with things, and I'll go really hard on stuff, and I pivot. I do what I need to do, and that's basically where cybersecurity came into my life, is just being ambitious and trying so many things, and stumbling upon something that I definitely had to pivot to, understand it and get into it. But it was just one of my strategies of finding stability so that I can build wealth and generational wealth. So that's what my goal is to build generational wealth for families, not just my own family, but for everybody. So this is going to be a really fun conversation because I've learned so much, over the past 10 years of my journey. And so, cybersecurity is definitely a big part of my my master plan.
Sorry. So now, based upon just, that brief overview, because, you told us what you do, but tell us more about who you are. How did you get? Because a lot of young people were listening to this program, and their parents or their educators who want to use our successful entrepreneurs like yourself as an example. They want to know some of the stories that went into, how you got to be where you are today. So maybe, you can go back to, from high school to today and how you got there. What high school did you attend? How did you go from there to college? Why don't you dive into that?
Yep. So I went to Westlake High School in Waldorf, Maryland. After that, I went to a couple of different colleges, but I ended up at Hood College in Frederick, Maryland. It's a little private school. And from there, I did business administration with a concentration in marketing. And then I also did political science. So I didn't even do any sort of IT. My last year of college, I had to have an internship for my business degree. And I was actually working at Nordstrom at the time. And I came across the CEO of an IT company, and he was so kind and gracious. And one thing I would say to everybody is we all need a sponsor. We all need somebody, it's one of those things where you have to have your pride, to the side, and you have to be vulnerable and kind of speak up and say what you need and what you want. and be able to take help. This CEO, he helped me. He literally took me from a retail store to working alongside him, going to meetings with, executives of base systems and all types of things that I never would have experienced at, 21 years old, still in college, if it wasn't for him. So his name is Todd Johnson. He's a big guy now. He does like a lot of investing here. He sold his IT company, but he definitely gave me my first exposure into the IT world, but more on a corporate level. So that's how I got into it. And when I realized how successful he was and how much money he had, I never imagined IT. I mean, I did business with marketing and I did political science. So IT to me I always thought of IT as computer science, like somebody who has to be, knowing how to type really fast and hacking computers. I just didn't even think about it. And so he really showed me that, something like IT is a skill that you can learn. It's like learning a language, and you can make as much money as you possibly want, depending on how you go about it. When he showed me that, my whole perspective changed on everything. So I ended up doing some, data projects for him, things I just naturally kind of have a skill in math. So I went in and he kind of gave me full reign to just go and do whatever I wanted to do. So I ended up pulling a lot of data. I went through a lot of documents. I started doing some analysis and, just working with him. So at a certain point, I was ready to kind of just try the entrepreneurial road on my own. I didn't want to continue working for him because I saw him and I saw how he took a leap. He jumped, he told me so many stories about, having to overcome, just various things as far as being a business owner. But IT was very stable. It's like you have these human resources, you contract them out, you make a margin. And, it's very kind of very simple business model, to be honest with you, government contracts. So from there, I explored the entrepreneurial world. I started a company. I have had a few partners, and we did a lot of entertainment things. We did, we ran some studios. We put on some events. We were just doing a bunch of different things, huge exploration. The reason why I took that route is also because I'm really big on case studies, and I'm really big on looking at other people and how they got to where they got. And at that time, I was enamored with Steve Jobs. And I learned that Steve Jobs went on a sabbatical kind of situation where he ended up just taking, maybe it was like 6 months or something. He just went off and went to like a Buddhist community and, just something that had nothing to do with what he ended up doing. But it was one of those ways of just exploring and just learning and soaking everything in and then coming back and then connecting the dots. So what ended up happening. I explored entertainment. I did some corporate sales. I did a lot of corporate sales. I actually worked for Comcast Business, so I did telecom. So it all kind of came together. And then from there, I stumbled upon cybersecurity. There was a guy, and he was just teaching people cybersecurity. He came across it. He's from Ethiopia, and he came across it, and he realized, nobody really knows what they're doing in that field before they get into it. So when I say that, I mean that you don't have to be, an expert on computers before you start in that field. It's something that you have to learn, and you have to continue learning. It changes every single day. Like when there's an attack, you basically have to go in, and there's a lessons learned section. Everybody kind of comes together, the whole cybersecurity community, and they learn. They do upgrades on all the systems. It's never ending. So when I found that out, and I found out it wasn't as rigid as I once thought, it was amazing to me, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I felt like this could give me that stability that I need to truly go on my entrepreneurial journey and anything else. So I took a class with him, and I actually brought some people along with me. And from there, I made a complete different career change, and I was able to really focus on my companies outside of that. And I still to this day do cybersecurity in the background of everything.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, for anybody who is interested in learning more about Kameran, asking any questions, don't hesitate to subscribe to this program. like the content, share it with your friends, and leave a question. And the question I was going to ask you is, I remember you and I first were introduced to one another through your work as a radio producer. Now, it's really interesting, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how did you, kind of get started in radio, and how did you get from, the event, the conversation that we had, to the event that we were talking about on the radio, to then, signing up for the cybersecurity course that you mentioned?
Well, I actually have been doing radio for a long time. So I did it in college. I had a radio show with some guys, and it was pretty popular. So, we were just playing local people's music, and we were really just trying to support, the artists that, don't get their music played, and maybe they don't even have good music. But, it's just, like I said, everybody needs a sponsor. Everybody needs some help. So that's what was our whole vision was with our radio station. I ended up going into, like I said, we ran a couple of music studios. We did some music events, live music. And I started volunteering at WPFW, which is a local DC grassroots radio station. And I was a co-host of what's called the Reggae Experience, which is just like what it sounds like. It's just a reggae show. And my co-host was a teacher, and teacher actually just put me in. I mean, literally, I can't even emphasize enough how, people all need help. Like, nobody gets to where they are, by themselves in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, so I started being a co-host for that. And then from there, I met Garland, he is a radio personality, and he's a media personality. He's a lot of things. But I met Garland Nixon. He has a show on WPFW by himself. And he found out about my political science background, and he said, you should come over to, where I work, on my day-to-day job, and you should come and try to, be a radio producer, for us. And, he said, or a host or whatever, but just get in the door and just start to get paid, for this entertainment world that you have of radio. So I did it. I followed his instructions to the T. He told me to do research on all these different topics and be prepared when I go into my interview with the editor. And, it ended up working out. And I started working at the radio station as a producer. And I also did economic reporting every single day. So it kind of brought everything together for me.
And I did not know that you had a show on WPFW. I had a show on WPFW at one time, The Law and You. And so it's interesting to see all these WPFW alumni, pretty much everybody who has worked at WPFW, I believe, is a dynamo, progressive, very connected with, so many people. And so I'm glad to see that you and I are birds of a feather with respect to that. And you're right. You and I, we met as you were a producer for Garland Nixon's show on 105.5, and his show, along with Lee Stranahan, was a show about politics. I would come on the show to talk about politics from a cyber perspective, talking about some of the work that we were doing. I think we were promoting an event at NASDAQ. You want to talk a little bit about that event and what transpired from that event to the next, months in your life and journey?
Yeah. So definitely, I mean, STEM for us, when I met you and I learned about everything that you were doing, it definitely, I feel like it helps, give access, just access. Like, even if you don't know where you're headed or where you're going, STEM for us really can just open your eyes to seeing what's out there, what's available. So I'm not sure if NASDAQ was the first event I went to, but the one that I went to that was really impactful for me was at the convention center. And I actually brought my friend, who I was pushing for her to homeschool her child because he was having some behavioral issues. And I'm like, that's, the system is not for everybody. The worst thing you could do is try to force him into something that's not working, homeschool him, because there's so many things, these kids can do that maybe the traditional setting is not for him. We came to your event, and you were really it was all about the kids. It was all about renewable energy. It was all about cybersecurity, drones, Pepco. You know, it was something I went to and I left and I'm like, we really have a lot of opportunities for our children. And if we don't, you know, really take control of our own lives and, you know, start to make some adjustments to what we're doing, if it's not going, you know, perfectly as planned, you know, as parents, our adult lives, you know, we're going to miss out on a great opportunity to expose our children to some of these things that they can do for stability. And, you know, just to make sure that when they are ready to jump out into the world, they have some skill, something that they know they can always fall back on, and not just the college degree. Because as we know, that doesn't guarantee anything, you know, but having that cybersecurity skill, or you were, there was I believe like Pepco University that, you know, dealt with the new renewable energy wave that's coming. And, you know, you were pushing these things, you were pushing the drone education. And I was just like, this is something I want to be part of. I'm going to show up to every event that they have, because I never know what I'm going to see. You know, I never know what I'm going to learn for the first time, some of these items. So, you know, when I came across cybersecurity, when it was introduced to me, I already knew about it because I was coming to your events. You know, I was hearing these things, I was being exposed to it. So it wasn't brand new. You know, it wasn't like I was just walking in and I'm like, wait, what is this? You know, it was, your events definitely always have helped me just be able to see what is really happening out there. Your NASDAQ events, same thing. You know, I never been to the NASDAQ building. I love the stock market. I was an economic reporter, you know, all of those things, and never been to NASDAQ. And one of your events, well, multiple of your events took me to NASDAQ, and I was able to see, like, this is a real company. This is a real thing. It's not just on, you know, on a ticker, you know, it's not just on your phone, you know, and so I'm just saying, I love STEM for Us. I love everything that you're doing. It's just amazing.
And again, we really appreciate the you know, recognition, and you are an example of why we do what we do. You know, a mother, you know, a professional, hearing opportunity for the youth, and then tell us about, you know, again, what it was like for you as a you know, a trained professional, older, then going back to school, getting some training in an area that was different from either politics or media. First of all, how long was the training? And walk us through what types of things you did while you you know, were doing the training. And did you do the training from home, or did you go to a classroom? What was that like?
So the training was about 2 months, and it was just on the weekends. And basically, the guy who did the training, he taught us how to do assessments, how to assess systems. You know, basically, you have these different guidelines. You know, you have NIST. You have what's called FISMA. There's, you know, the government does one thing I love about the United States government is they do a really good job with documenting. You know what I mean? So, you know, you can think whatever you want, but there's always a document that you can go back to. You know, there's always something you could reference. It doesn't, in the government, they don't really leave things up to chance. You know, some people might say, oh, it's not thorough enough, or it's not this, but there's always something. So that's how it was for cybersecurity. He really just showed us where these different documents are located, what they're used for, read them. You know, some of them are 400, 500 pages, but he really just was like, if you read these documents and you take this class, you will find work. I mean, I think at that time, I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but at that time, there was like 300,000 open positions that were like people were looking to fill. These companies were willing to train, you know, entry level for cybersecurity, all of that sort of stuff. So he's just basically like, this is where the guidelines are located. This is what it looks like when you do an assessment. And, you know, he just kind of showed us the path. And from there, I worked with him a little bit on some different contracts that he had, you know, just kind of getting my feet wet and, you know, doing what I do, which is, like I said, just understanding that somebody has to pull you forward. So sometimes you have to volunteer, you know, sometimes you just have to juggle, you know, multiple things at once. But that's how I got into it. I mean, literally another person just pulling me up, along with a bunch of other people, about 2 months worth of training. And it was really a lot of reading and a lot of just understanding how everything works, you know, understanding the ecosystem.
was muted there. I appreciated you talking about how you went from a conversation about cybersecurity to a class, a weekend class about cybersecurity, and then after the classes ended, 2 months weekend classes, what happened then in your journey?
So I started working with the teacher. He was very nice. Like, he was wonderful to me to have me, working on some projects under him, literally just to get my feet wet. So after that, when I worked with him for a little while, I ended up applying for jobs. He told me, you should really start applying. You can do this, because I was a little bit hesitant, because I did have so many other things going on. I was a little bit hesitant to take on a full-time position, with the company, just because of my personal business, journey and everything. But he really was telling me, like, no, you can do this. You can juggle it. It's going to be great. You know what you're doing. It's time, So I said, okay. And I literally just went on the voyage of, applying for jobs. And I ended up getting the first one that I applied for. And it just, it worked out. I can't even, it was almost just like everything lined up just by going forward. So I got the first job that I applied for. And the beautiful thing about it was I got into the company and they were building a new department. So they were doing FedRAMP assessments. They were building out their FedRAMP 3PAO work. And so that's one of the most amazing things about cybersecurity to me, is that there's always something new. So, like, for example, right now, CMMC is coming out. So you don't, like I said.
Okay, hold on. Stop. Uh-huh. You've just given us a couple of acronyms that I don't even know, let alone I'm sure all of our, deep in the weeds cybersecurity professionals, a lot of those who are already cybersecurity professionals like yourself, they know exactly what you're talking about. But for the parents and young people, please explain those two acronyms to us. And, okay. And also, please drop the name of the training course that you took, because I'm going to put a link in for it, because again, a lot of folks want to know how can they start a weekend class and then start making. How much money did you start making in that?
I started making six figures when I came in.
Hold on. So what's six figures? 101. What exactly was it?
It was 130.
Wow. All right. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So FedRAMP is the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. And basically what that is it's cloud systems. It's the regulations, it's the guidelines that you follow in order to assess a cloud system. And when you're assessing a system, you're just going through this checklist of controls, security controls. And it sounds like complicated, but honestly, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a way that you are controlling, your security. So for example, you have like access management. You have, basically you're making sure that only the correct people have access to the system. So there's controls that you have to put in place to ensure that only the right people have access to the system in the way that they're supposed to. So the reason why it's a high paying job is because there's a lot of controls and there's a lot of digging that you have to do. You're almost auditing, but you're not auditing, you're assessing. So I know I'm going to start getting real dorky in a second, but I won't do it. I'll just kind of keep it, high level. So you have FedRAMP, and that is for cloud systems. You have FISMA, that is for regular, systems, on-premise systems. And if you're assessing a system using with FISMA, you have to go on site and you have to actually go and check out the physical security. For example, do they make people sign in when they come into the data center? Do they have air conditioners to make sure that the servers don't overheat and that the information is always available? So I guess the best way to put it is the government, they call it CIA. Confidentiality, integrity, availability. That's the goal, is to remain everything to stay confidential as it needs to. So of course you have like top secret, but you have things that are really, really low, like the Smithsonian, for example, information there. You're not going to put the same effort into protecting the confidentiality of, information at the Smithsonian as you are with information at DOD, right? The Department of Defense. But it's still it still applies to every agency, confidentiality. And then you have integrity. Integrity is basically saying that there's controls in place that ensure that people can't just come in and change the information. Because obviously, if you have files, like, for example, my file that's, in the government has a lot of different things, right? So if somebody goes in there and they switch up the numbers on my social security number, or they change, anything, these people, hackers, and sometimes they just do things for fun. It's not always like, they're trying to take everything and take the government down. Sometimes there's hackers out there that just like to mess around with people's information and to make things hard on people. So that's integrity, is making sure that, no one can just change information. Only the correct people have access to change information, administrative rights. And then the last one is availability. So availability is making sure that the information is always accessible. So that's why in that portion of assessments, you're making sure that there's backups. You want your daily backups, you want your monthly backups, incremental backups. Very simple. And like I said, also you have like air conditioning. You may never think that cybersecurity, you look at, the fence around the building, cameras, the security guards. Those are all things you have to assess to ensure that the servers are protected. So that's why I said it's very interesting, and there's guidelines for all of it. But that's basically, everything is based off of CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability. So you constantly have these new guidelines coming out. Constantly, the government is doing a great job on just, keeping up with the new attacks, with the new, solar winds, for example, changed everything. It's just, every time something happens, the government is reevaluating all of their documentation, all of their policies, their procedures, their guidelines, and they just put out revision after revision. So FedRAMP is one that's solely for cloud systems. FISMA is for on-premise systems. And then you have CMMC, which is coming, it's for government contractors in general. So they're in the supply chain. All the contractors in the supply chain, basically, once upon a time, they could do a self-attestation on whether or not their systems were secure. Obviously, if you're doing a self-attestation, which means that you're just answering questions, yes or no. Do you do this? Yes, we do that. You know what's going to happen. People are not actually doing those things, or they might think they're doing, these controls, they have these controls in place, but it's not correctly implemented. So that's why there's now the CMMC, which is rolling out, and it won't be all the way rolled out until 2026. So this year, they will start putting in their RFPs, which is a request for proposal, which is how the government talks to contractors. They say, hey, we have this project coming up. We need a contractor to fill. And here's the document that explains, what that project is going to look like. Give us your proposal, and the best proposal wins. So within those RFPs, the request for proposal, the government puts all of the items that you have to fulfill: insurance requirements, the scope of work, everything. So now they're going to start putting in CMMC requirements. And that is going to basically say, depending on what your role is in the defense supply chain, is going to determine what kind of level of assessment you have to have completed. So I'm saying this because it's a huge opportunity. A lot of jobs are going to be created from this. There's 300,000 contractors in the defense supply chain. 300,000. All of them by 2026 will have to have some sort of assessment, and they have not had these assessments before. And I want to also point out, if you guys are following me, I'm sorry if it's getting a little bit crazy, but I also want to point out there's a difference between classified information and unclassified information. You have controlled unclassified information, that's called CUI, and then you have classified information. I don't deal with classified information. People who deal with that, they have like top clearances and all types of stuff. Honestly, the clearance thing is amazing to get, but it's very, very, rigorous. And, that's not even something I'm trying to do. But if you were to get a security clearance, you get a job like that. You don't even, honestly, you might not even need to have a cybersecurity background. They might train you because it's a need, right? And you have to have this clearance. in order to deal with certain systems. I deal with controlled unclassified information. And so basically that means you have the defense supply chain. Within that supply chain, you have janitorial companies that just clean, the agency's buildings. You'd be surprised how people who are a threat to America or to any country, but a threat to America, they are very smart. Some of them, they will see something like they'll watch a contract, for example. They'll watch the ordering. Like, for example, if you're a janitorial company, right? And you order, 10 cases of bleach every month, and they're watching every month. And now this 1 month, you order 100 cases. They put together in their mind, something has changed. Maybe somebody important is coming. Maybe there's going to be a big gathering at, this building. They start to like put the pieces together, and they just slowly piece information, and they find out when is the best time to attack. So that's why controlled unclassified information is an entire part of cybersecurity that's completely separate than classified information. And it's very important to understand that, because if you can like kind of wrap your head around it, you'll realize the jobs are endless. I mean, it's truly endless, and they're never going to be all the way filled. So even if you went into cybersecurity just for a couple of years, just to pay for your college, or just to, start your business, get the funding you need if you want to buy trucks or you want to do real estate. I mean, I know people who went into it for about 5 years, and they just ended up making their credit really good, buying some properties that they rented out, and then getting out of cybersecurity. Because it's really that much, there's that much work that's available. So just trying to give you like a high level view of just where cybersecurity fits into the world. We obviously, like I said, classified information, that is a whole realm that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about simple information that you would never think was so important that you need to protect. Contract information, for example, if you're, let's say you're let's say you are I use janitorial company all the time, because it's kind of the one place where when I learned about this, I said, so the janitorial companies are potentially, they can pose a threat, to the whole United States government. And it's like, yes. I mean, just the information that they carry, or the contract information they have. Sometimes they'll have a contract with a federal agency, and it has addresses on there, that don't need to be shared, that don't need to be seen. So it's a huge industry. I love cybersecurity. I think it's, I tell every young person I know about it. I tell every older person I know about it. You don't have to be young, and you don't have to be old. You just have to be willing to learn, and be willing to step out of your comfort zone and basically learn a new language, learn a new skill. And so as far as the class, the guy who taught me, he's no longer teaching. So like I said, he got in, did what he needed to do. He's an investor now. But there is a woman who's teaching it now, and I could find that information and end up sending it to you at some point. But I need to just like locate it and ask him. He passed it off to someone else, and she's doing really great. She's amazing. She has like, I think 2 or 3 cybersecurity jobs, and she teaches. So, she's making a lot of money.
Well, I think that we at STEM for Us need to get into that business of teaching ourselves, because if that is leading to some high paying jobs, like you mentioned, for people who are, parents, imagine what type of impact that's going to have on your daughter, and all our young people who are out there. If their parents are going into the field, it's going to give them a leg up once they get old enough. And you mentioned you don't have to have a college degree. Could somebody who didn't have a high school degree, who's old enough, could they get this training and go into these jobs as well?
Oh, absolutely. I know of a company that recently hired a person who hasn't even graduated high school yet, because he's building out some algorithms he's really smart. He doesn't even have a high school diploma. It's just his knowledge. Now he is like amazing. He's really into it. He reads, it's all about reading. But yeah, he hasn't even graduated high school. So the fact that he's not necessarily working on government contracts, But again, in cybersecurity, there's so many different places you can go. You can just be in project management. You don't even have to be technical. You can just come in and know the basics, and you get a PMP, which is a certificate that, for project management. And you can come in and get a $250,000 job because you're managing, the program or the project, managing the contract, you're managing the client, so those sort of things. But yeah, it like I said, it doesn't matter how old you are. You can be older. You don't have to have a college degree. You won't be able to fill every role or every contract, and every company won't be right for you, right? You still have to go find that company that's right for you. Maybe that company is just a subcontractor, and they just provide, a bigger contractor. Like, for example, Booz Allen is a huge company. They have so many subcontractor companies. I mean, when I started working in the field, I worked for a subcontractor. I still technically work for a subcontractor, but we're the prime contractor on quite a few projects, actually. But we also do a lot of subcontracting. So for example, a Booz Allen, you'll go into a tech company, and this tech company may have 10 people in their company, maybe not even that many, maybe it's like 5. I've seen very small groups, and they just have this small subcontractor under Booz Allen doing something, that Booz Allen needs. So maybe they're just providing research. Maybe they're just providing technical writing, to support Booz Allen's big contracts. So yeah, I mean, when I tell you that the cybersecurity world, to me, it doesn't look like any other industry. Technology itself is just a amazing world that we live in right now. But specifically, when you take IT or you take technology and you pin it down into cybersecurity, it's just different. Like I said, there's so many avenues. There's so many jobs that are open, and you don't have to have a master's, but if you do, you get paid more. If you do have those certifications, you get paid more. That's kind of the name of the game, is get as many certifications as you can, and make as much money as possible.
So now that you've given us a description about, the cybersecurity game and how do you get in it, tell us what is, the next, 5 years or maybe even 1 to 3 years look like for Kameran now that you're in this game? What are your targets right now?
So for me, mine are a little bit different than other people's. Like I said, I was an entrepreneur before, I got into cybersecurity. I was on my journey in my 20s, just trying to figure out, how are these people able to buy Lamborghinis? How are they able to pay cash for houses and, buying penthouses in, New York? Like I was just always amazed with buying power, and not because I'm into material things, but it's just that I just never knew, I never was taught, I never learned why some people have so much more buying power than other people. And, and I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs or should I say, business strategists. I think a lot of them go into the investment world because they're curious. They're wondering, why not me? Like, what makes me different than this person? So that's kind of how I started my journey was, my parents didn't go to college. They ended up, having children, getting married very young and having children young, like 19, 20, they were married and had their first baby within like 6 months, or maybe 9 months. But so I didn't even have that, to kind of look at and say, oh, how do people go to Harvard? I wasn't thinking about Harvard. I was just thinking about going to college. So my curiosity, has always kind of helped me make sure I take the next step, because my background is just a little bit different. My dad's a public service worker. He's a police officer. My mom is a stay-at-home mom. She used to work in corporate, but, some things happened with her in our personal family life. And, she ended up, just being better off just being a stay-at-home mom. So different things like that. But I will say that my mom exposed me to a lot of very successful people. That was her big thing. She wanted to make sure that she wanted to make sure she made friends with people who lived in Potomac in these mansions and who drove Ferraris. And she wanted to show me, like, it's possible. You need to take the next step. You need to take our family forward. So I say all that to lead up to the point of, if I was a different person, I would probably stay in cybersecurity, and I would move into, having my own cybersecurity company and getting my own contracts and just kind of taking it from there. However, I'm a little bit different. So I'm actually moving into the hedge fund world. That was something that I just always wanted to do, was to get into investment banking, private equity firm, hedge fund, those sort of things. They've always just amazed me. And I just felt like everybody who's in that game, yes, there's a lot of risk, but if you can, manage your risk, which is funny because cybersecurity is a lot about managing risk, but, risk management is the name of the game. Due diligence is the name of the game. So for me, I'm actually moving into that industry. I have a company. I'll be working under a hedge fund. My company will. And then eventually at some point, within the next 5 to 10 years, I'm definitely going to have my own fund. But I just have to learn the game. And cybersecurity also gave me the confidence to know that, you don't have to have 20 years of experience doing something in order to get into it. You don't have to be self-conscious and think, oh, well, I'm not qualified for this. Or no, you just have to be humble and modest. And you just have to come to people and tell them what you're looking to do and ask for help. And so that's exactly what I did. I found a couple mentors in the financial sector, and they've taken me and my partners under their wings. So within the next 5 years, I'll probably be moving forward from cybersecurity, but I will certainly invest in a cybersecurity company. I will acquire a cybersecurity company. I'll merge some cybersecurity companies. I have a whole plan for cybersecurity, but more on like a business level. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to build out applications, especially for everyday people. So for example, I do assessments on government systems, but now we have all these interconnected devices at home. We have Alexa, we have the Ring, we have, whatever you use for cable. We have these smart TVs. I mean, do people really know how to protect their systems? I mean, do they really know how to protect their home so their data is not just leaking? And so I see a lot of opportunity in the realm of, residential sort of cybersecurity for everyday people, and that's simple. You can go to one place and there's applications. There's something that's called scans. So, it's basically an algorithm that's made, and you just kind of like you put in IP addresses, and it literally just scans, everything. It scans all the IP addresses, MAC addresses. And I see a big opportunity for that, for everyday residential, consumers, rather than these huge, corporations and these, huge companies and huge agencies. We don't really have anything that's marketed well and that's very impactful for everyday people. So, IoT, Internet of Things, that's huge. It's growing every day, more and more and more. People's light bulbs, you have smart light bulbs now. It's just everything is connected. So eventually, I will certainly have some cybersecurity companies. I will be an investor in it. I will be, have a majority or minority stake, whichever it is. But that's where I'm headed. In the next 5 years, I plan to be completely immersed into the hedge fund world. And like I said, working and trading and doing these things with cybersecurity companies. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of ways that you can go about cybersecurity.
And let me ask you, in terms of the, kind of vision you have for both acquiring cyber firms or equity in cybersecurity firms, a lot of people are, kind of concerned. We talk about viruses, for example, like the COVID virus and the vaccinations. People, are literally concerned about like what type of information they have to basically turn over in order to participate in the trial. People who don't realize that the vaccination is a trial program, and so they're being monitored during this process. And so people are looking at it from the larger standpoint, like, our lives are constantly being surveilled, and people would like to have more control over, how, they and their information and their data is being used either by the government or by private interests. What is going on in the cybersecurity space now to give people more control of that? And do you see that as an opportunity for investment long term?
So that whole realm is called privacy. So privacy it still falls under cybersecurity. It's a little bit different, but if you're in cybersecurity, you can transition over to privacy, just go back and forth. I mean, it's, people usually do both, or some people have only done privacy, which is protecting data. And yeah, so with that, I mean, I think there's maybe like 3 or 4 companies that I've been on like an online virtual business event, maybe like 3 or 4 different women-owned companies, minority women-owned companies that are working on applications for specifically in the privacy realm. Whoever can pinpoint how to protect everyone's data will become a trillionaire in my mind. I think that, everyone is concerned about your data. The thing is, your data is out there, right? So your social security number is out there. There's the black market, your name, everything is out there. There's people who have access. However, at your everyday routine, right? That's data. What you look up on a regular basis on your computer, what for example, if you have a smart fridge, how many times you open that fridge, you'd be surprised. Data, like people, these companies, Amazon, all these companies, Target, they collect every single piece of data they could possibly collect. For example, Target, if you have your phone on in Target, every aisle you walk down, they know what aisle you're walking down. They know what you're looking at. They know, I can't even explain to you that they care about every little piece of data they can get because they sell it. And, you have data miners, you have people who, they can do so much with this information that Amazon doesn't even try to guess. They don't try to say, oh, well, it's important for us to know this and this isn't important. They don't do that. It's all automated. So they collect everything. Every time you go on the internet and you Google something, every time, and even the time that you Googled it, where you were located when you Googled it. What's another example? I mean, it's there. It's all there. What we're trying to protect now is that portion. We're trying to protect the fact of you don't want somebody to know, everything that you're doing when you're doing it, right? Like when I hear about people saying about their, bank numbers or their social security numbers, I'm like, well, you just need to get over that because that's gone, right? Like all of those things are already, it's out there. Like your social security number and your identifiable information, personal identifiable information, which is called PII. And there's PHI, that's personal health information, which HIPAA is supposed to, basically cover that. But that's all under privacy. So your PII, that's already out there, But, what shows you're watching on TV and what time of the day you watch TV and when you go in and out of your door and when you ring, when somebody comes to your house, all of those things, those are happening in real time. Those are the things that we need to protect now. Because it's not even just about, what would happen if, somebody attacked the United States, right? That's not the only concern. It's what if someone's able to find out your routine? They know when you're going to be gone or when you're going to be out of town or, what your routine is and, how frequently, for example, if you have multiple homes. And that's why I think a lot of rich people have been getting a lot of more break-ins. People have been breaking into their home a lot more. I believe it's because they know, your routine. Like they can see where you're going. They can see, okay, if you look up, for example, Delta Airlines, they see all of that. You know what I mean? Like those are the things you have to protect because you really don't know how valuable, you don't know what you have that's valuable to somebody else. And especially with your data, you just don't know. So all that ranting to say privacy is huge. I believe the person who can pinpoint privacy, like I said, I believe that they will be a trillionaire. I believe that, a lot of trillionaires are going to start coming up over these next 10 years. You have artificial intelligence. You have, like we said, privacy, cybersecurity / privacy. Privacy is under cybersecurity, but it can go so many different routes. But privacy, yes, big deal. Then you, of course, have what's the other one? You have blockchain, right? You have all these different things in tech. So no matter what you do, you just have to get into the game. Like you have to get into the tech world in some way, shape, or form, even if you're older. Like you have to. You just can't not get involved. I mean, that's where everything is moving. And when, I went to the grocery store the other day and I was with a couple of my friends, they were doing a cookout, and I'm telling them like, no, don't go to the self-checkout line. You need to go to the regular lines because these people are going to lose their jobs because nobody wants to go to the regular lines, except for maybe the older population. You know what I mean? So there's always a purpose for human. But what I'm saying is if you work at the grocery store and you're able to fix that system, if something happens, it breaks down, and you're able to check people out, you'll always have a job. But if you're only able to check people out, eventually they're going to downsize. And now there's only maybe 2 people. The whole thing is filled up with self-checkout, and maybe there's 2 or 3 lines for maybe handicapped people or elderly people, and that's it. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is no matter what age you are, I mean, you really just you have to get in the game in some way. And STEM for us is a great example of how you can get in the game in maybe the educational route or the route of exposing children to it. Or, you can get into it in different ways. It doesn't mean that you have to be a coder or a developer. There's different things you can do, but you have to get involved.
Let me give you 3 last questions as we conclude. And I want to kind of give it to you in like kind of a, a round robin style. So 3 questions to go out with. One is, what has been the greatest challenge that you've faced and overcome? Second is, how would you like to be most remembered at the end of your life? And third of all, what advice would you have to Kameran at age 17?
So biggest challenge, I can't even pinpoint one. I would just say that life is always throwing something at you. I deal with challenges every day. So, and not just even every day. I mean, every single quarter, it seems to be another thing, another big thing happening. So I look at like challenges is, when people do ask that, like, oh, what's the biggest challenge or what's the worst thing that you've been through? I'm like, I don't even know, because honestly, I just take things as they come. And I just always remember to stay, connected to God and just, be prepared. Don't think that everything is going to go good all the time. The universe is always balancing itself. So I would just say as far as challenge, a recent challenge I had, which I felt, I really felt deeply in my soul, was an investment that fell through. A client, and we got a bunch of people involved and it ended up falling apart. So, stuff like that, that was really hard for me. So I can't even remember, 10 years ago or anything like that, because it's like I'm constantly putting out fires every single day. But you just roll with it and you just stay positive and you just remember that there's a higher power, and don't think that you're exempt from challenges, because you're not. Not only are you not exempt, but they will come. That's guaranteed. The next question you asked was, I don't remember.
The next question is, how do you want to be most remembered?
Oh, I want to be most remembered by, I want to build a city. So my company, Maran Consulting, our vision is to build a city in Africa. I have some African partners that just has all high paying jobs. I want to be remembered as the person who took people who didn't, graduate from Harvard, or who didn't, who aren't even maybe, college graduates at all. They might just be orphans, from China, or they might be, just, sexually abused children from, United States. It doesn't matter, right? But people who are kind of like the underdogs, people who are in the system, and people who no one takes a chance on because of whatever reason. They're just being, they're being prejudiced and they just don't want to take a chance on you. I want to be remembered as a person who actually, makes those people into winners. So I'm trying to figure out ways to do that. And that's another reason I love cybersecurity, because like I said, you can take somebody from rags to riches, and they don't have to have all these credentials that people once had to even just get a decent job, let alone, a job that pays 6 figures. And I also want to be in that same, breath, I want to be known for setting those people up for financial success. So, helping them build, asset protection, getting them incorporated, getting them, helping them build business credit, different things that some people have never heard about, or they never experienced, or they didn't think they could get $500,000 in funding if they just have an LLC for 2 years and they build up their, duns. It's so many different things that people don't know. And so that's what I want to be remembered for, is taking people who didn't have access to that information and just making them very, very financially successful. And the last thing about me, what would I say to my 17-year-old self? I would have just told myself that I would have started a lot sooner. I would have been reading a lot more. I would have been at the table in different, I would have been more concerned about being at certain tables than I was. I've always been around business owners. I've always, since I was very young, I always knew it was important because I had a lot of people telling me that. But I would tell my 17-year-old self, friends and having fun and all that stuff is wonderful, right? I worked hard, but I could have worked harder. And I would have just told myself, hey, the harder you work in this first 10 years of your life, the more books you read, the more information that you gather, the more classes you take, the more experiences that you have where you're focused and you're watching, your eyes are open, the better. But I definitely would tell myself to read more books. I would have gotten into the investment world, into the hedge fund world, the financial sector. I would have gotten to that a lot sooner. I would have read all the books that Warren Buffett said to read. I would have read The Intelligent Investor. That's what I would have done even at 17. So that's what I would tell myself, is just read more. And, being smart is cool, not wearing certain clothes or being out with people and hanging out. That stuff will come, the fun part will come. You'll be able to buy your game systems and all of that. But being smart is truly the cool thing to do.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I can't believe that an hour has gone by so fast. But we've given out so much information. And I think that the most important thing is that, hey, if you are not making as much money as you would like to make right now, and you want to just, transition, then cybersecurity is a great way to perhaps do that pivot. And, right now, while a lot of folks have lost jobs and are trying to come back into the job market, you really should look at an opportunity to get involved with cybersecurity. We're hosting a cyber conference for young people, young boys in particular, on August the 13th through the 15th. And the whole idea is teaching them about how to get their first job in cybersecurity, or in drone technology, or in information analysis, anything that has to do with a cyber career track. And hearing people like you, and I'm really, first of all, honored that you've accepted our invitation to speak at that program. And I think hearing your story is going to really excite a lot of our young boys, particularly that last kind of bit of advice that you gave. I'd like to just again say how grateful we are, that you got involved with the cybersecurity and the STEM for Us family, attended our programs, benefited from some of the opportunities, and now are reinvesting. And again, we're looking forward to seeing how you kind of grow in the next years, get into the hedge fund space. Hopefully you won't be like some of these Bain Capital or other groups that have used their capital to kind of corrupt the marketplace, if you will, like Melvin Capital. I know you heard about Melvin Capital and the Robinhood debacle. But we really, are enthusiastic about the energy you bring. We're enthusiastic about the ideas that you have, and we're excited about the opportunities to work with you. Any last comments before we conclude?
No, thank you so much. And I think that, what you're doing is needed, it's necessary. And, at the end of the day, we all just need to talk more. We just need to give access to information and be vulnerable, but again, like I'll say till I'm blue in the face, everybody needs a sponsor. Everybody needs help. It's what you have to do. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to say, I want to make more money. I want to make a change in my life. Just do it.
Well, with that, I again congratulate you. Looking forward to working with you. Looking forward to having you as a part of our August 13th through the 15th Cyber Youth Conference. And again, don't hesitate to like this video, share it, Subscribe to it. Any questions that you haven't asked, feel free to reach out to us and put them in the comment, and we'll make sure that we get them back to you. Again, congratulations, Kameran, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Thank you so much. You too.
Take care.
Bye.